everyone, and welcome to Semester 2 USQ Leadership Conference. It's all about taking those first steps, whether that be in your career or in your personal life. So before we get started, I'd just like to acknowledge the country in which we stand on today. So in the spirit of reconciliation, the University of Southern Queensland recognises that it is situated on the country of which the Yagara and Yugara people have been custodians for many centuries, on which they have performed age-old ceremonies of celebration, initiation and renewal. We acknowledge their living culture and unique role in the life of this region and offer our deep appreciation for their contribution to and support of our academic enterprise. So thank you. Let's get straight into it, shall we? So I'm assuming you're all busting to get to know what's happening tonight. We've got three main objectives tonight that I hope you can take away and really work on for your future studies and even outside your studies. So the first objective, to think about leadership in a different way to what you're currently thinking about it now. So I'm assuming most people think that leadership is like prime ministers or your boss or something like that. But everyone here in this studio and online are leaders. They're an everyday leader. Otherwise, you would not be here right now. You either want to change your life by doing a different career or maybe taking that step further in your own personal life. Our second objective tonight is to gain new leadership skills, knowledge and confidence. Confidence is key to anything. For example, tonight, confidence. I need confidence to speak to you guys, so that's just one minor example there. Thirdly, but definitely not last, to be able to apply what you have learned here today to your own journey. So we hope you can relate to some of the stories that we're going to talk to you today about and see what little ideas that you can take back to your own journey. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's introduce our first speaker. Our first speaker is James Peterson. He's the founder and CEO of Breaking Free. James started the mental health charity Breaking Free at 18 years old with the simple idea of preventing mental illness by educating and encouraging young people to live mentally healthy lifestyles. He had no forms of financial or personal support, just an idea, a burning passion and a lot of belief. Over the last 4 years, James has steadily grown his Breaking Free. In that time, has presented to over 30,000 high school students, giving them the knowledge and tools to look after their mental health. James currently works on Breaking Free full-time, has a volunteer base of 70 people, and has a number of other part-time presenters throughout Queensland. His 5-year plan with Breaking Free is to have presenters in every region within Australia, so that all high school students are taught growing up how to be mentally healthy. So let's welcome James.
Excellent. Hey everyone, my name's James. I'm 22 years old. I was actually born and bred on the Gold Coast, and as you just heard, I'm the founder and CEO of a mental health charity called Breaking Free. Now what I'm thinking of doing today, I've got 20 minutes, I'm thinking of breaking up the session into two parts. So the first part, I'm just going to kind of explain my story and like how I evolved and grew Breaking Free to where it is now. And then the second part, I'm just going to talk about like what I've learned throughout that experience, about leadership, about starting something from scratch, and just kind of give you like what I've learned throughout that process. So to start off with, I'll just kind of explain my story about how Breaking Free all started. And to be honest, it all kind of really started with my dad. My dad, throughout his entire life, he experienced severe depression and anxiety on and off. And all throughout high school, like he was in and out of mental health hospitals, seeing psychologists, seeing psychiatrists, etc. And unfortunately, a couple of weeks after I graduated from high school, after going in and out of mental health hospitals, after trying treatment option after treatment option, after giving his absolute best, a couple of weeks after I graduated from high school, my dad actually made the decision to end his own life. And that instilled in me like a burning desire to help and make a difference. And my dad was absolutely an incredible person. He actually talked to me when he was younger about wanting to start up a mental health charity when he got better. And it was that burning desire to help people like my dad and families that went through similar things to what our family actually went through. That's what kind of inspired me the passion and the belief to start Breaking Free. So what I actually did was I kind of looked at the landscape of mental health in Australia, and I looked at the statistics. And what the statistics actually showed was an incredibly startling reality, in that every single generation rates of mental illness were increasing. And I looked at it, And I went, okay, so rates of mental illness are increasing with each successive generation, and yet like antidepressant medication use has increased by 300% over the last 20 years. There's more mental health charities available than there's ever been before. There's more psychologists, there's more psychiatrists. The stigma attached to mental illness is actually the lowest it's ever been. And I looked at this and I was like, well, why for some reason are rates of mental illness increasing with each successive generation? Like, this makes absolutely no sense. And the reason why is actually our lifestyles. People are living mentally unhealthy lifestyles. So I came up with the idea, well, what happens if I was to go into schools and to teach young people how to be mentally healthy and how to live a mentally healthy lifestyle? Like, I'm sure like a lot of people here can relate. You go to school and you're taught how to like learn algebra and maths, etc. But you're very rarely actually taught the skills that you need to know to look after your mental health and to be happy. And for me personally, I think that's like the whole purpose of life, is to be happy and to make other people happy. And you were taught like hours every single day on like maths, English, etc. And you were barely ever taught how to look after our mental health. And so I thought, okay, no one's ever really taught how to look after their mental health. Maybe it's a really good idea if people actually went into schools, young people that the students could relate to, and actually started talking to them about the basic things they could do to improve their lifestyle and to be mentally healthy. So at Breaking Free, we've got these 8 lifestyle changes that we talk about, and I go into schools and I present and I talk about these 8 lifestyle changes and how it can improve students' mental health. We've been doing this now for 4 years. It started off just what I actually did is I called up one of the biggest schools in Queensland, and I kind of faked it until I made it. And I called up and I said, oh, you know, I'm a mental health presenter. I present around Queensland, etc. And I'd never ever presented in my life. And I actually got into one of the biggest schools in Queensland. And what that actually did was, when I went to other schools, I said, oh, I've presented at this school. They're like, oh, well, if you presented at this school, you can definitely come and present at our school. And it kind of snowballed from there. And so in the first year, I presented at 14 schools. Second year, I presented at 49 schools. Last year, I presented at 80 schools. And this year, I'm on track to present, along with the other presenters, at about 170 schools. And so what that actually did was this slow progression, just starting from one school, and we kind of built from there. And we just go into schools and teach people how to be mentally healthy. And our results have been fantastic. We've been surveyed about 5,000 people last year, and 87% of high school students reported that they made a positive change to their lifestyle following our presentations. So they might have started exercising, they started sleeping for longer, they went outside, they became more socially active. So we got like 87% of people reported making a change, 89% reported they were more likely to seek help for a mental health issue in the future if they would ever get one. And 94% of students found the presentations informative and useful. So that's kind of like a bit of a story about what I do and how I got to where we are currently. Currently, as you just heard, we got 70 volunteers, we got a number of part-time presenters around Australia, and our 5-year vision, and this is what I want to achieve, is that we want to have presenters in every single region around Australia, aged probably between the ages of 18 and 24, 25, so they're relatable to the high school students. And we want them in every single school within Australia teaching people how to be mentally healthy. Because I think it'd be fantastic if in schools we actually had people going in and people taught how to look after their mental health in the same way we're actually taught how to look after our physical health. I think that'd be fantastic, and that's our goal, is we want every single high school student to be given the opportunity to learn how to look after their mental health and how to be mentally healthy. So that's a bit about my story and where we're at currently. What I'd like to do is just over the course of this 4-year journey, it has definitely been a huge journey. I started from absolutely nothing when I was 18, and we are where we are today, and it's not exactly where I want to be. Like, I've got huge plans for the future, but what I've learned over this 4-year journey, I kind of like to give you some kind of piece of advice for anyone here that's thinking of starting something or doing something in the future. So we'll get into like the advice that I've learned over the last 4 years. And so number one, and this is by far the most important thing, this is kind of like the mental health advocate of me coming out, is before you do anything and you start anything, I think it's imperative to ask yourself, is this going to make me happy? So many people get into business or start something and it doesn't make them happy. And I saw it firsthand with my dad. Like, he was a business owner, etc. But he was working 14 hours a day, 7 days a week, wasn't exercising, wasn't getting enough sleep, was always under stress, and he wasn't happy. And I think the whole purpose of life is to be happy. So if whatever you're doing, whatever you're about to do, if you think to yourself, well, this isn't really going to make me happy, don't do it. Don't do it. Like, don't start a business or go into something if you don't think it's going to make you happy. That is without question my first and biggest piece of advice. So before anything, just ask yourself, is it going to make me happy? Once you go, okay, well, you know, I think I'm going to enjoy this. I actually enjoy the process of building something, of doing a business. I'm not doing it for the money. I'm not doing it for the like popularity, etc. I'm doing it because I enjoy the process of starting something and building something, and you know that that's what fulfills you and gives you happiness. Moving on to the second piece of advice, which is do something that makes you passionate and find and do something that makes you truly passionate. So I'm obviously very, very passionate about mental health because of what happened with my dad, and I love what I do. And I think it's imperative once you go, okay, I'd like to get into business, that you find something you're truly passionate about, not just something that in the moment you're feeling a bit passionate about for a week or two, but something you have a true passion to do long term. Because if you're not truly passionate about it, starting something, it is kind of difficult. And after a while, if you're not really passionate about it, you're eventually gonna kind of like fall out of love with it, and as a result, like your results in terms of business or any kind of startup is going to start to diminish. So make sure you're truly passionate about it. After that, number 3 is do your research and never stop researching. When I started with starting the mental health charity, I surveyed like the current climate of mental health in Australia for about a year. And I did a huge amount of research on all the different mental health charities. I looked at, well, why on earth are the statistics going up? Even though we've got more mental health charities, more psychologists, more psychiatrists, etc., what is it? And it's because we weren't focusing on lifestyle. Majority of the focus was on reducing the stigma, but we can reduce the stigma to a certain extent, but at some stage, we need to actually know how to look after our mental health, like how to reduce our stress, how much we need to exercise, how much sleep we need to get, the importance of sunlight, a well-balanced diet, etc., etc. That's really important. So I did my research, and it was because I did my research that Breaking Free had kind of a niche in the market. And we're different from every other mental health charity because we're focusing on something different. So I think it's really important, once you've found your passion, that you do a huge amount of research before you go into anything. You don't just jump into it. And I've also got like in brackets and never stop researching. So I've done my presentation now probably about 230, 240 times. And every single time I get on that stage, I'm trying to do my best presentation I've ever done. And every single day, I'm trying to work and improve on the presentations and on Breaking Free and the way the operation and the organization works. So I've got this growth mindset that every single day, I want to try to improve Breaking Free. And I think that's a mindset that's imperative in any business going forward. So do your research prior, but then when you've started and you're doing something and you've started up the venture, never stop researching. Always keep trying to improve whatever you're doing. I think that's really important and something that I strive to do. And just in general, like I try to improve on myself as a person every single day. So like probably every day for about an hour, hour and a half, I'll be on YouTube watching videos about inspirational people that motivate me, or listening to autobiographies or reading books, so I can become the best version of myself so that I can run the best organization I possibly can. So when you've worked out, all right, it's going to make me happy, you've found your passion, you've done your research, never stop researching from that point. Always keep researching, always keep trying to improve. Now, number 4, and this might be quite an interesting one, is just to stay calm. I'm really a big advocate of this because you'll often see in like media and just on news in general, there's kind of this perception out there that in order to be successful in business or in a startup or any kind of venture, that you need to be working 14 hours a day, you need to be sacrificing sleep. You see motivational speakers get up there and you're like, you know what, I only sleep for 4 or 5 hours a day, I'm working hard when the other person's sleeping, I'm working, etc. And coming from a mental health background, I think it's imperative that you don't sacrifice your happiness and your health for the success of a venture. Because once again, going back to the first point, it's really important to be happy first. So number 4 is just to stay calm. When I started Breaking Free, I didn't start working like 7, 8 hours a day on it. I was at university studying down at Griffith on the Gold Coast, and I just started working an hour and a half each day. I just started researching, started writing notes, started compiling a research booklet, and I just started working methodically on it. And that was the whole process I've taken throughout this whole thing, because I always want to put my mental health first. So I just started by working an hour and a half. So anyone listening right now, if you've got an idea, you don't have to just jump straight into it. Like, it doesn't have to be your biggest form of like financial security straight away. You don't need to get your money from it straight away. My advice, if you're studying, you can just start a venture on the side. Just start working for an hour and a half on something that you're passionate about, just in your spare time. It doesn't have to happen straight away. And this is like my favorite one, because I've always just stayed calm throughout this entire process. And over time, I started an hour and a half. Now it's probably 3.5, 4 hours a day. And it's just going to steadily increase. But the thing is when you work consistently on something, instead of like, I think everyone can relate, you know how at New Year's, people are like, you know what, I'm going to start working out 3 hours a day, every single day, I'm going to get this killer body. And then within about 3 or 4 weeks, majority of people have stopped because it's too hard. Same thing's true in business or any kind of startup or venture. Sometimes people go too hard at the start and they lose their passion and are no longer passionate about it. It is so much better just to stay calm, methodically work on an hour, 2.5 hours each day, just slowly work on it and be consistent in your work, than is to go full on in for 3 or 4 months and then find it's too much, it's overwhelming, it's causing you stress, you're not happy, and as a result, you stop whatever you're doing. I think consistency is the key, and so I advocate always being calm and just working consistently on something over a period of time. Now, number 5 is keep focused. When I started breaking free, absolutely no one believed in me. My mum, my sister were like, you know what, like go get a job, go study at university. Like there's no way you can do this. Like there's no way that you can make this happen. But I always had a very clear vision of what I wanted. And I wanted to provide mental health education in high schools because it wasn't being provided. And I had a very clear vision and I remained focused. And I always kept a goal, and I still am very much focused on the goal. So we've experienced some success at this point, but we're nowhere near where I want to be. Like I want to be at a stage where every single student in Australia and then ultimately the world is given the opportunity to learn how to look after their mental health and how to look after the most important asset we all have, which is our mind. So this is imperative in terms of any business, is just keeping focus. You're gonna have a lot of noise, you're gonna have a lot of people saying you can't do this, it's impossible, etc. But if you've got a vision, you're passionate about it, you've done your research, you've stayed calm, and you're consistently working on it, and you just stay focused on the goal over a period of time, eventually good things start to happen. But you got to be patient, it takes time. I didn't get here like overnight, it took 4 years, and it was just very consistent growth. And that's the plan in the future, is to consistently grow and remain very much focused. I've seen with a lot of people in charities, what actually happens is they start to get a bit of notoriety, start presenting at a lot of events, and they start to become like a personal brand, and they kind of lose focus. And it's not about the charity anymore, it's kind of more about them like promoting themselves. And so I'm very much just focused on just trying to help as many people as possible with breaking free, and it's a huge asset, it's a huge thing to do in terms of anything in life, just having a vision, staying very much on that path and staying focused. And last but not least, the sixth little thing that I wanted to talk about is believe in yourself and what you're doing. Now throughout this entire process of finding a true passion, doing your research, staying calm and remaining focused, if you don't believe in yourself and what you're doing, you're not going to be successful whatsoever. Like if you don't think what you're doing is actually going to result in like successful outcomes, it's not going to. I'm very much a true believer in your mindset kind of determines where you end up. And a good example of this is like from the get-go, when I was 18, people would say, well, what do you want to do in the future? And I said, I'm going to run a successful mental health charity. And they go like, what are you talking about? And like, what have you done? Like, I've talked to like 2 or 3 schools. I'm like, okay, well, that's not going to do. But I always believed in myself. And my biggest piece of advice with regards to this is just watch your language. So whenever someone comes up to me and says, what do you want to do? What's going to happen with Breaking Free? I say it's going to become one of the most impactful charities in the world. It's not maybe going to become the most impactful charity in the world. It's not maybe going to touch majority of high school students in Australia. It is. It is going to do it. And I've been saying that, and you know what? When I started saying that, I didn't really believe it, to be honest. But I just said it until I started to believe it. So my advice on whatever you're doing, believe in yourself, because if you don't, in whatever it is, you're not going to be successful. You've got to believe that you're going to have a successful outcome at the end. And my biggest piece of advice with that is just watch your language. I will do it. I will do it. It's going to happen. Not it might, I think it will. It will happen. That's what I've always used in order to instill belief in myself. And it's kind of like at the start when I talked about the story, like fake it until you make it. Like I faked belief until I actually started to believe. And now I truly do believe that we will become one of the most impactful charities in the world, and I know it's going to happen. And you've got to have that kind of certainty in any venture you have, because that kind of certainty and belief is what's going to drive you going forward. So please keep that belief. And last but not least, and it's kind of going to tie in back to like the mental health advocate in me, number 7 is throughout this entire process, continue to ask yourself, is this making me happy and fulfilled? There's going to be days where it doesn't and you're not enjoying what you do. There's some days where I present and I'm like, okay, I've done this presentation so many times, I feel like I'm saying the same thing over and over again. And there's going to be some days you don't feel like it, and there's going to be some weeks where you don't feel like it. But if it gets to the stage where you're going months and months at a time and you're hating what you're doing and you're not happy and you're not enjoying it, my advice is don't do it. That's my advice. Is throughout this entire process, if after a while you're like, you know what, I'm not happy, I'm not enjoying this, I'm not getting enough sleep, I'm not happy, I'm not seeing my family, etc., don't do it. Because my personal belief is the whole purpose of life is just to be happy and to make other people happy. And at the start, I said, ask yourself if it's going to make you happy. And at the start, you might have thought it's going to make you happy. But then after a while, you realize, okay, you know what? This isn't making me happy. And my advice in that situation, don't just keep doing it for year after year after year. You live one life. There's no point wasting your working life doing something you don't enjoy. So throughout this entire process, continually ask yourself, is this making me happy and fulfilled? And I do that all the time. Throughout this entire process, I'm always asking myself, am I happy? Am I enjoying what I'm doing? And the day where I go, you know what? For 6 or 7 months I've been doing this and I'm not enjoying this anymore. Like I'm not happy, then the quality of what I do will actually decrease. And that's true in anything. If you're not happy, if you're not enjoying what you're doing, you're not going to be successful at it. So throughout this entire process, always ask yourself, am I happy? Am I fulfilled? Am I enjoying what I'm doing? And if the answer is no for too long, don't do it. Like no amount of money, success, etc. is worth your mental health and your happiness. So please just don't do it. So quick like rehash, this is like my kind of process. I'm only young. There's lots of different ways to go about being successful, etc. I don't even think I'm successful yet. I've still got a long way to go. But this, over the 4-year journey that I've had, this is kind of the framework that I've worked with in order to get Breaking Free to where we are today. And it was really simple. I just said, is this going to make me happy and fulfilled? And I went, yes. I really want to make a difference in this world, helping to prevent people from getting a mental illness. That's going to make me happy. That's going to make me fulfilled. Working with young people, I'm going to really enjoy that. Then I went, what's my true passion? Well, making people happy and contributing to the world. That's my true passion. And it's always been the case, and it's even more, it was extrapolated by the fact about what happened with my dad. But I always had that desire. So I knew straight away, yep, this is going to be a passion, and I know it's going to be a long-term passion. Then I did my research. I actually compiled a 380-page document. I didn't have to do it. It was about 45,000 words because I wanted to become an expert on mental illness and mental health. Because if I'm working one-on-one with people who are experiencing mental illness every single day, I need to be an expert on it. So I spent a year while studying, like creating this huge research document. I researched all the other charities, and then I went down an avenue that I thought was going to be the most successful way to actually prevent mental illness and improve people's mental health going forward. Then I went and I stayed calm. I was really, really calm. Never stressed, just really, really calm, methodically working at it. Just wrote out the steps, had a vision, just methodically did it. Really calm, no pressure, not putting stress on myself. And I'd advise everyone to do the same. Don't just jump straight into something. You can keep a job on the side whilst working for an hour or two until it gets to the stage where it's big enough to actually dedicate yourself to fully. Then I kept focused. I had no one believed in me, but I believed in me, and I had a very clear vision. And a lot of people, what we were doing actually in the mental health sphere is actually quite unique. Majority of mental health charities are all about reducing the stigma attached to mental illness, and we're all about giving people 8 really simple tools to improve their mental health. So we're very practical charities. So I kept very focused despite the fact that other charities are doing something different. I kept very, very focused, and I'm going to remain very, very focused on what we're doing going forward. I believed in myself 100%. I didn't care what other people said. I believe this is going to happen. I know it's going to happen. And that was really, really important to my success, because if I didn't believe, there's so many times throughout this entire journey where I went, you know what, this is too hard. It'd be easy just to get a normal job, listen to my mum, listen to my sister, listen to my friends. But I believed in myself, and I believe this is going to work out. And so I took that belief, and that's how we got to where we are today. And finally, is this making me happy and fulfilled? I love my job. I love what I do. Some days it's kind of tough when you're giving the same presentation 3 or 4 times in a day, because you kind of feel like a broken record saying the same thing over and over. But I absolutely love what I do. Getting comments from people on Facebook saying that it saved their life or it prevented their friend from getting a mental illness, etc. It's so fulfilling and rewarding. So I absolutely love my job. This is the process that I've gone through to get Breaking Free to where it is today. It's a process I'm going to continue to follow as Breaking Free moves forward. And we've got lots of big plans in the future. And I hope you guys have lots of big plans in the future, and I wish you all luck with it. And hopefully this was a sum use today. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Your 7 points, I think, will definitely be used by a lot of people that have seen that. You're definitely an inspiration for our students and for us, so congratulations for everything that you've done at Breaking Free as well. I'd now like to introduce Mike from Little Tokyo 2. Mike is the marketing manager at Little Tokyo 2 and has been with Little Tokyo 2 for 18 months now. Mike is currently the longest serving staff member and has helped double the business size since he's come on board. So I'd now like to welcome Mike to the stage.
Thanks for the introduction. If there's one way to do a presentation, that was it. Congrats, James. Sorry to hear the story about your father, though, but more importantly, it's awesome to see that someone found a problem in the world, and he, well, as James' story, he put his sheer determination to doing something to fix it. So I'm going to tell you a few stories tonight. Everyone likes stories. We grew up as children listening to stories, and I'm sure we'll die as 600-year-old people, because technology is so advanced these days, listening to stories as well. So the first story I'll tell is mine, and the second one I'll talk about is Jock, our founder, and then furthermore I'll talk a bit more around Little Tokyo 2. And also I've just got some advice around leadership and what makes a good leader, and also what's a good determination for success. So my story definitely come from an entrepreneurial background. My dad, from ever in a day, he was always starting some side projects, some side businesses. He became quite successful starting an IT company, building white box PCs for the government in the 90s, and that became a very, very, very large business. Seeing a roadmap of where the IT landscape was changing, diversifying to various different technologies. And so for me as a young kid growing up, I became quite inspired to, try and make a bit of money wherever I possibly could. So my mum used to make kick-ass sandwiches. She made the best brownies. I'd steal a few extra and take them to school and sell them so I could actually buy Tuck Shop. I was never allowed Tuck Shop, but everyone who was buying Tuck Shop, I had Tuck Shop money, they'd prefer my mum's cookies instead. So it's a good way for me to make a bit of cash, and it was also an opportunity for me to get my Tuck Shop. Damn, sausage rolls are good. Further on from that, when I finished high school, I'm talking to a bunch of university students right now. I said to my dad, look, I don't really want to go to university. I just want to go work at Subway and party for a few years. And, when I'm 24, 25, I'll think about, studying, figuring out what I want to do in life then, and then, look at taking a job seriously. And to my dad, Dad's detriment, like he gave me a really cool piece of advice. He goes, Mike, do you want to party for 5 years and work hard for 50? Or do you want to work hard for 5 years and party for 50? And from what I learned out of this, I'm like, Dad, you're in your mid-50s, you don't party. I don't think you understand this. But what I did learn from that is, irrespective of your age gap, you still want to have fun. And from that, I kind of learned, very early on, is really, really putting a lot of effort and a lot of hard yards in, to begin with, but not really burning that bridge to getting where I want to be for success. I stupidly worked full-time. I was at university full-time, and I was bartending as well. I spent 4 years doing that. I really, really suffered a lot of mental illness through that period as well, because I was seriously burning the candle at both ends. I was becoming really exhausted. But what I learnt from that, though, is an important thing, and we've got some students, some are recently graduated and some are close to finishing their degree. Experience is definitely key. Now, what you're going to get out of your university education, you almost have to, and the way I refer to it is learning to walk. Your parents are the ones that held your hands and taught you how to walk. But it was you who taught yourselves how to run, how to skip, how to jump, how to get on a bike and do all that crazy stuff that we did as kids. So you almost need to reflect your university education as being your parents helping you to walk. So your university degree isn't going to go and open up all the doors. It's the experience. It's what you do with it next, or what you do with it alongside studying, is what's going to determine that success and that next level of leadership of wherever you want to be in life. I'll talk a bit about what happened post-university. I was pretty blessed to work within my family business. We had an IT company, which is a spin-off my dad's one from the 90s. It was something which my older brother and we'd been building for quite some time. We had a 14-year legacy, and we grew it to quite a substantial size. I was very, very blessed to really bust my ass off and learn a lot from a growing business up to a turnover of $44 million a year. Unfortunately, we chose the wrong investors. That's definitely one thing. If you're ever going to get into business, make sure you always have investors that want to be involved into a business. Our passive investors weren't all that good, and as a result of them injecting $5 million cash, our business went into receivership within 90 days because we just grew too quickly. So a lesson learned there in business: choose your investors wisely, and definitely do not grow too quickly as well. So, and that what brings me on to a next part of my presentation around taking things slow. That's exactly what James was saying earlier. We all live in different time zones. I posted a thing on LinkedIn recently. It's a take of some words that I've always said, and it's also a take of world events. Obama, he started at 55. Obama retired at 55. Trump started at 70. Sydney's 3 hours ahead of Perth. Some people are single, some people are married, in the same week. Hold on one second. I'll have to take my notes because I did get thrown into this at the absolute last minute. Apologies for that. Talk about not being perfect, right? Here's another one. So some people become a CEO at 25 and they die at 50. Others become a CEO at 50 and they die at 90. So irrespective of where you are in life, everyone works to their own time zone. Some people are finishing uni at 25, some are starting at 45. So it is irrespective of where you are in life. Don't envy those who are ahead of you. Don't mock those ones who are behind you. Everyone works to their own time frame. Be thankful, be grateful, and just be patient, because your time will come when it is right. So don't think that you have to be racing that race, and because someone's a few years younger than you, that you haven't achieved the level of success that you wanted because they're a bit younger and a bit more successful. That doesn't matter at all. I think what matters is what is success to you. How you achieve that is, entirely up to the way you want to go about it as well. I'm going to talk a bit about the Jock story. Jock is our founder, big burly rugby fella with a monster beard. He's an amazing public speaker as well. How he started, when he finished high school, he wanted to do one of two things, either play rugby for the Wallabies or become a women's shoe designer. Two vastly different options in my opinion. Luckily for him, he had an opportunity to play rugby very competitively. Unfortunately, he had a bad back and he had a few injuries. So he went over to the London College of Fashion and designed women's shoe labels. He started his own label. He absolutely excelled, but what he got out of that is he absolutely hustled. He used to do close to 4,000 calls a month, and he got it to the stage where he sold it out to a Swiss conglomerate. Coming back from that, he had a little bit of money. He's back in Brisbane. He's had all these mates who were trying to start their own business, and he said, all right guys, how about this? We're going to go buy a house. We're going to live in there, we're going to drink beer, we're going to have a bit of fun, and I'm going to be your business development manager, and I'm going to go out there and help you grow your business and mentor you and really help you get what it takes for you to start your own business. So yeah, fantastic. So we're all, all these mates were out celebrating at a restaurant called Little Tokyo. It's a Japanese restaurant in Spring Hill, the oldest Japanese restaurant in Australia, and was the original Japanese embassy here in Queensland as well. They were talking to Michiko O'Brien. She seemed a bit down. She was the owner. She's 97 and still working. She's really, really down. She's like, look, I'm trying to sell my business, but the issue I've got is everyone that wants to buy the business at the building, they want to rip down the building and build apartments. They're making an absolute shit ton of money. Sorry for swearing. And that's a bit of a hard thing for Michiko because she's got a 40-year legacy behind this name and she doesn't want to let it go that easily. So Jock said, look, how about this? I'll offer you an absolute fraction of the price. He got an absolute bargain for this building. He proposed, said, I'm going to go name my business after you. We're going to call it Little Tokyo 2. We're going to keep all the colours. We're going to keep all the branding. We're going to keep the building exactly the same as it is. So our headquarters in Spring Hill, you walk into an old Japanese restaurant. We do have a Chinese restaurant attached to us. We haven't told Michiko that one. She'd have a heart attack. But ultimately, that was the story of how Little Tokyo 2 came to be. To Jock, a heritage story and the honour of Michiko's achievements was so important for her, for us to start out of that building, and that's why we came alive today. We, the story of what happened next is a pretty interesting one. We spent 2 months ripping the building apart, well, the internal walls and structures, so the rest of the structure is still fine. We kept our promise. Built all these offices and desks, and we opened the place to the public. It wasn't just Jock's mates, so we became extremely female friendly, extremely friendly with the LGBT community, and then more so as we became a great support network for young and small businesses. Originally, we started with startups. Now, we were advertising or appealing to all the startups. Now, unfortunately, startups got a bit of a negative connotation because everyone thought, well, to be a startup, you need to be a 15 to 25-year-old pimply kid, hacking away, typing code that whole time. Whilst what we really wanted to help achieve is break down the barrier for entry for any young and small business to actually thrive and achieve. So, fast forward to where we got today. We've got 4 sites across southeast Queensland. So we've got 3 in towards the Brisbane city. So we've got Petrie Terrace, Spring Hill and the CBD. And now we've got one here next door to USQ in Springfield. Outlook in terms of where we're going, we definitely recognise the need for regional growth, and more importantly to support quite a diverse community within that southeast Queensland region. So Toowoomba and the Gold Coast is opening up soon, followed by Sunshine Coast, Logan and North Lakes. What we really want to do is create a monster nice tight network of people within southeast Queensland. So for anyone with a small business, you're generally going to leverage the people within a smaller geographical location as opposed to going to Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, New Zealand, Asia. So this is where we've been to date. So it's exciting news of where we're coming. Now what I do want to talk about is a little bit more about the leadership. Leadership roles are very, very different. Everyone leads and talks to people or has relationships with people in a very different manner. So some of the things to keep in mind, now bear in mind these are mostly Jock's things as well. So burn the boats is Jock's favourite saying. Is it the fact that he's got a beard and looks like a Viking and he's very proud of his Viking heritage? Absolutely. But I think the big one being is that burning the boats, not to be confused with burning a bridge, is you don't have any opportunity to look back. If you're going to jump into something, go into it absolutely heads on. Don't think that there's an escape as an option. The more that you commit to something like that, the better off your chance for success is going to be. Because too many is that people are offering for the safe card and looking over their shoulder, oh, maybe I should back out. But with anything, if you go in fully committed, your chances for success are much higher. And it's all about, we've heard the saying, it's all about who you know, not what you know. I think it's definitely a combination of both, but the importance of networking is very imperative for general leadership and success in this world. Now, within what I do, so I'm as a sales and marketing manager for Little Tokyo 2, I help 400 businesses across all of our sites achieve their everyday goals and achieve whatever success looks like to them. I'm very privileged in the fact that I know a little bit about almost every industry, and I know someone in absolutely every industry that could leverage one of our members or anyone from the outside community as well. So I think knowing as many people and broadening your network beyond your original scope, whether you're starting engineering or HR or your law, learning something about everything and having contacts in every industry is definitely of huge benefit. Hunger for knowledge is super important, and that's where I go a bit further on to, where your education from university is going to help you. What the next step for you to do is continue that knowledge or continue that hunger to learn is super important. What James was saying earlier, he goes and YouTubes all sorts of things as well. What I end up YouTubing is I'm almost a certified locksmith, unofficially though. Not because I wanted to break into people's house or anything, I was just always kind of curious around how locks work, and just a hunger for knowledge and hunger for learning is so important in essential leadership skills. And I'll get into the reason why shortly. One of the things people put through is do anything to make the sale and then figure out the details afterwards. Kind of hate that as a salesperson, because Jock is fantastic at that. He goes and says, yep, this is what we're going to do, and then he works really hard with the team to make sure that we deliver. An amazing story is actually of his mum, Jane. One of the largest contracts that she ever won was her first one. And she actually, so it was a big tender for a hospital up in Darwin, and she basically won this tender, and they said, cool, fantastic, Jane, you won the tender. What is the company name that we're going to invoice this under? And Jane actually didn't have a company name at the time. She didn't have an ABN or anything like that. She said, yep, cool, just put under this name, and she went home that instant and went and registered her business. So being focused on that end game, being focused on trying to win that prize of that deal is so much more important than figuring out the details later. And that can be interpreted in several different ways. Problem solving is one of the things I learned in high school, and it's one of the things that got belted into me quite a lot. So life is one big problem. You just got to figure out the way to solve it. And I'm sure you've got some engineering students here. That is probably what they excel at, is trying to solve problems. And I think that's in life in general. Like, there's so many more problems to be solved. There's so much that we need to learn around how we solve those problems as well. I think you've just got to, there's more than one ways to skin a cat. There's more than one ways to eat an orange. So you got to look at every problem in very different ways. And I think that's through talking and being in a collaborative space like ours as well has really opened up to a lot of people figuring out what is that right way to solve some problems. One thing I learnt was done is better than perfect. So I am a perfectionist. I have to do absolutely everything perfect. This is killing me that I'm reading things off a sheet of paper right now. But one thing I learnt within Little Tokyo 2 is that getting things done is a hell of a lot more better than getting it perfect and absolutely right. Now, I'm just going to talk about two more stories. One being the secrets to success in being a great leader is persistence and resilience. We've got an amazing opportunity here in Springfield, and apologies for those who are online that couldn't make it, but here in Springfield you have probably one of the most amazing leaders being Maha Sinnathamby. He found 300,000 acres of absolute swampland 25 years ago. The city that it is being built today, this is a 25-year project in the making. And that's where it comes down to patience. Again, another thing that James was saying. Like, you got to understand that what you want to achieve in 10 years' time may not be realistic. And if you just keep chipping away a little bit at a time, you're going to get that end result. And I think that's where it's really important when people come to us and go, oh, I want to start this business in 3 months' time. This is where I want to be at. I'm like, well, it takes 9 months to grow a child. It's not going to take you 3 months to, if you put that same time frame to start a business and really get some legs working and chipping away a little bit every day, then I think that's a fantastic opportunity for you to really start to understand what it takes to be a good leader. And that really revolves around patience. Ryan Tattle, a member that we had, he invented a product called Euthermic. Basically, it was a lotion which you rub on your skin to keep you warm warm in the cooler climates. Ideally, it was a way for him to invent, because a lot of women that they went clubbing with in their early 20s, they wanted to wear their short skirts in winter and they're freezing so much. So he invented a lotion. It took them 37 iterations to get the product right. So after, and you'd think, most people would fail 2, 3, 4, 5 times, 20 times. This kid just kept going because he believed so much in this product could work, and he kept altering until he got there. He's got an amazing team and an amazing product. Now they're actually inventing the complete opposite, which is heat screen, which keeps you cool in the warmer climate. Just a few things around leadership, and I realise my time is almost up. A few things that a few things that I definitely encourage is definitely starting small. Now, for anyone that is going to go out there and start their own business, the first employee you ever hire is going to be the scariest one you ever hire. Something to probably ease your way into that is actually engaging the likes of a virtual assistant. So a virtual assistant, someone who is based a bit remotely, what that then teaches you to do is really write up that product description, teaches you how you should be managing and mentoring someone. Even the fact that they are remotely, there is an awesome opportunity for you to really engage, teach and learn from them, and also from yourself around how you can actually engage full-time staff moving forward. Hiring too quickly is definitely a big thing I'd definitely avoid. We have a weird motto, you hire slow but you fire fast. So you take your time to find the right person. And it is so important because hiring people is expensive. It's a tedious process, and if you get it wrong, it's just not right. So where's an awesome opportunity is if they are not the right fit, you almost kind of need to nip it in the butt straight away, and you really need to move them on. I personally, through the cafes that my family have owned and the ones that I've run before, is I'd always go find the next job for my employee before I actually have that awful chat with them. Definitely a great leadership quality I always learnt from my father is that if someone's not right, find that next job for them, because it comes back to you so well in the same level of respect that if they're not right or they're not feeling it in the company that you now have established, it gives them that same respect to give you a bit of notice if they're not committed to it in the long term. I'm going to go through 2 more things. So for your inner leader, sleep is vital. And it's again another thing. I'm pretty much trying to say the same things James is saying. One thing I definitely learned is you can't go and have a tough conversation when you're cranky, when you're tired, when you're stressed, when you're overworked. It is really important to get your mental clarity right, and a few of those things are through exercise, doing what makes you happy, and then also making sure you actually get enough sleep at night. I changed a lot of my routine since I've joined a large team, or since I've grown the team at Little Tokyo 2 to be a larger team. And one of those things, I'm going to bed at 9 o'clock, so I've kind of got to go soon. But I do feel like a bit of a grandpa, but I wake up at 4:30, 5 o'clock every morning, and what I get done there, and the fact that I am getting more than my 8 hours of sleep every night, it's you have that morning time to really achieve and to get your day set right, but more importantly, get my mental head clarity right. I do believe I'm out of time, so look, thank you so much for your patience, and look forward to meeting you all in the Q&A session later.
So again, a big thank you from Mike from Little Tokyo 2. So as he did mention, he will be sticking around for the Q&A session, and so will James. So I do encourage you, if there are any questions, please answer them at that Q&A session at the end of the next speaker. Speaking of the next speaker, I'd like to introduce Xavier Gunn, who is a student leader here at USQ. Xavier Gunn is a proactive student who loves volunteer work. He's currently serving on the USQ Springfield Student Representative Committee as the Secretary and is the Health, Engineering and Sciences Representative. He's passionate about engineering and is in his 4th year studying a Bachelor of Engineering and a Bachelor of Business. He enjoys martial arts practice, working as a Phoenix leader and having some resemblance of a social life. Xavier entered USQ studies through the tertiary preparation program and is now actively looking for electrical engineering roles. So I'd now like to invite Xavier onto stage.
Hello everyone. So when I was 15, I was originally very sceptical about volunteer work. I viewed it as the sort of thing that people would do so that they could boast about what good people they are. And I'm sure that is sometimes true. However, in different areas of my life, I've found things that I care about. So I would like to talk a bit about how volunteer work has become important to me. I remember when I was 18, I did ice short track speed skating, the same sport Stephen Bradbury did. I witnessed a lot of drama in the sport and the governance throughout the country and thought that in some ways the sport could be governed better. I shocked some of the people around me by running to be the president of the Queensland Ice Racing Association and was successful. I think they wanted a young athlete in that position. And I think that I made a difference serving in that role for the next 2 years. For example, effectively spending money from the Queensland government. And as an 18 and 19-year-old, this was a great experience for me. I got to learn skills such as organising meetings and organising events. It was also really fun being a skating coach at that time. In 2015, when I was studying here, I was less involved in ice skating, so I decided to join the Student Representative Committee, and I found this to be a very different experience. However, I still found it rewarding getting involved in my student community. I know a lot of people see us organising fun events, but we are also responsible for other contributions, such as renovating the student common rooms and passing on student feedback. I believe that being part of the Student Representative Committee has been a key part of my experience at this university, and I would recommend it to any student. Something that I care deeply about is supporting people on the autism spectrum and advocacy for people on the autism spectrum. I've done a bit of volunteer work supporting people on the autism spectrum, for example at the Brisbane City Council Library, and one of the things I've learned is that autism spectrum disorder is not very well understood in society. I don't see how society can become more accommodating of people on the autism spectrum if they don't have a basic understanding of it, regardless of how good their intentions are. For example, some people on the autism spectrum are highly visually sensitive to fluorescent lights, and their use is widespread. I really enjoyed participating in the Engineers Without Borders Humanitarian Design Summit in Cambodia. And I enjoyed applying some skills I'd learned from my studies and getting to work in engineering in an intercultural context. It was a bit of a culture shock, but I liked working with villagers and learning from them about how we could help to improve their quality of life. So I think that volunteer work has given me experiences that I may not have got otherwise. For example, last year, USQ sent me and one other student to the National Student Leadership Forum, where we got to hear from a lot of notable speakers and interact with important people such as the Prime Minister. I also enjoyed all the free food and alcohol, and I swear there was something I was missing. Okay. So I think that volunteer work has given me a breadth of experience and satisfaction that I could not have possibly got otherwise. I know that a lot of people don't like the idea of engaging in volunteer work because they're very busy. I think everyone can make time for volunteer work. For example, I'm very busy studying engineering, but I've also made time for unpaid engineering work experience. And as an engineering student who is really passionate about engineering, getting to work on cool projects, such as an engineering research project that could potentially reduce the impact of waste in the mining industry and providing wireless internet service in Botswana has been really fulfilling for me. So as I go forward in life, I'm sure that volunteer work will remain one of my commitments, and I hope that I've encouraged you to do volunteer work. Or if you're already doing volunteer work, I hope that I've encouraged you to do more of it and given you a sense of how important it is. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dave. That was really, really interesting, and I'm sure you'll go very, very far. So now we'll have a bit of a Q&A panel. So I'll introduce the guys again to come on over. So this is the time where you guys in the audience and also live online can actually ask any questions to the speakers. So we have a couple of minutes. So I know you've been tuning your brains out for at least one question. Because we've got time with these guys, and I think they've got some really valuable tips to give to you. We've also got our online questions up here as well from all the online students. So please don't be shy. If no one has a question from the audience or online, I'm happy to start the flow. No one's got anything? No, well, we got one.
I'd like to ask a question.
Yeah.
So I'd like to ask this to you, James. So what is the value of taking your own steps and making mistakes along the way?
Oh, there's huge value in it. So to start off with, I had absolutely no idea about anything. I was 18 years old. I didn't know how to build a website. I didn't know how to build a phone app. I didn't know how to build a constitution. I didn't know how to register a charity. I didn't know where to register a charity. I didn't know anything, absolutely nothing. But that goes back to the point of doing the research. So I was just consistently researching. Anytime I had a question or anything, I taught myself how to build a website, taught myself how to build an app. I taught myself how to do the legal work and everything. And so I was just constantly researching and teaching myself how to do those things. So it was constantly a process of trial and error. I reckon I probably worked on the website, there's probably been 14 different iterations of it. So the first one was atrocious. In fact, the school saw it, and they're like, sorry, we don't want to have you in, James, because they saw the website because it was so bad. But now, I'm much better at building websites. Same with when we do our videos of the presentations for the last semester, we do summaries kinds of thing. First of all, I was doing the videos, it was atrocious, but then over time it gets better and better. So yeah, the biggest thing with regards to learning from experiences is just keep researching. I can't emphasize this enough. Whenever you have an issue or you want to learn something, with the internet, you can literally learn or teach yourself anything. If you're not too happy with your finances, how to run or manage your finances, you can learn it. You can go research 20 books. You can listen to interviews in your spare time on YouTube. If you don't know how to build something, do your research on it. So yeah, I'm just a huge advocate of research and constant lifelong learning and growth. That's what my biggest piece of advice is, just constant research.
What about you, Mike, with that question? So I'll just quickly repeat it. So what's the value of taking your own steps and maybe making those mistakes along the way?
I guess it's like a lot of things, unless you make a mistake, you don't learn. How many of us know now not to fall over on purpose? Definitely guilty of that one. And I guess, furthermore, for anyone that we have that comes and starts a business, it's pretty amazing. They go, oh, this is my business idea, this is the be all and end all, this is what I'm going to do and going to do for the rest of my life. And I kind of go, well, probably the better way to go about it is, and for myself personally, what I've learned is you almost need to have a few burner projects. And how that's come about is, we've all got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of business ideas. I actually listed all mine out and I wrote, and I rearranged them to make sure, okay, what are the ones that I can do, almost fail on purpose, but to learn that lesson. And so what I've started to do is, the first business I've gone and launched, I put $500 into it, lasted 3 months, didn't really go anywhere, scrapped it. But what I learned from that has been the foundation for the next one. And then the second one, wiped that one off. And that foundation has been built further and further and further. So I guess it's kind of, my biggest advice is I'd encourage you to fail. If you don't fail, you're not learning.
Yeah. That's excellent piece of advice. What about you, Zave?
Sorry, what was the question?
So what's the value of taking your own steps and making those mistakes along the way?
Taking your own steps? Well, you have to take your own steps because no one takes what I've learned as opposed to being in high school or a little kid is that no one takes steps for you.
Great.
Yeah.
Cool. Nice. So do you feel that mistakes are beneficial if you're learning from them, or can they be hurdles? So this is from Kim, who's online at the moment. So is that sort of what we touched on before?
It's probably a combination of both, really. Some people have learnt some pretty bad mistakes. Personally, out of our family, we've learnt some horrendous ones that sent us bankrupt twice. And then furthermore, it's just a matter of what you do with that mistake. So if you haven't turned every mistake into a lesson, then I think that's probably the big fundamental of where you're going wrong. If you see it as a hurdle or something that you've had to overcome to continue on, and I think that's a positive lesson to take out of that.
I think just with regards like extrapolating on that, it just says the words if you're learning from or can there be hurdles. Well, it's all about how you view the mistake. So if you actually say, the words you treat it like a learning experience, and you coin the phrase, oh, it's a learning experience rather than a hurdle. Simply like going back to your words again, like how you talk affects how you think, which then affects your actions and your choices you make. So if you view it as a learning experience, every single hurdle is a learning experience, then you always take something from it. But if every single time something happens to you, you go, oh, this is a hurdle, then you're going to view it as a hurdle. So I think the answer to that question, it's all a mindset. The answer to it is all about your mindset. So it's a hurdle if you view it as a hurdle. It's a learning experience if you view it as a learning experience. It's just completely how you view it. So yeah, once again, I'm just a huge proponent on the words that you say is what affects your thoughts, which then affects what you do with your life and the choices you make. So it's just all about how you view it.
It's a really good concept, really good
Sorry,
idea.
can I add something to it? I think that sometimes mistakes can be a hurdle. For example, if you make a mistake that damages your reputation by being unethical, and that's why in whatever I do, I always try to come into it with the best of intentions.
Very good, very good. Okay, does anyone have any other questions in the audience?
Got another one.
Oh,
from
we got
Kim.
one.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Good. Kim, you're on fire. If you could give me one tip on becoming a good leader, what would it be? Should we start with Zach this time?
Okay. So I think that if you're going to be a good leader, everyone's different and everyone has their own strengths. So you can encourage other people to be the strongest version of themselves, and then they can do their best work, and you can do your best work, and then you can all work together effectively. And I think that's a much better approach than trying to be the stereotypical leader who tells everyone what to do.
Yeah, I'd definitely say it's an inclusion. I try not to talk around a hierarchy. I'm trying to, the words that instead of talking about as my team that I work that are working for me, it's our team. We're in that collectively and we're in it together. And I guess it's a good leader leads and they don't direct. So they're in the trenches. They're sitting there. We've all had that one boss who sits in their office and they just point and direct and they bark the orders, and that gets quite frustrating. But where it makes a big difference, and an amazing story is actually Mark Zuckerberg as well. Actually, this is probably a perfect example. Of a great leader. His desk is in the middle of an open plan office. Anyone can go up to him at absolutely any given time, provided he's in the country, to talk to him about absolutely everything. But I think what has been Mark's biggest strength is his ability to answer really tough questions. So every Friday, or is it every second Friday, he sits with the entire company in a big auditorium and they have a big Q&A session. So anyone can ask any question, irrespective of the nature of it, and he'll answer it truthfully and honestly. Now, some of these questions are actually, pretty intense. I remember one being, this is of feedback from one of our members at Little Tokyo 2 who worked for Facebook. One of the members is saying, look, your VP of sales has been touching me inappropriately. What are you going to do about it? I don't know Mark's response, unfortunately, but what I can tell you is that he didn't say, fantastic, I'll address that with him offline. He actually addressed the question straight away. So I think probably becoming a leader is actually being in touch with your organisation, being in touch with your team, and actually being in the trenches with them to really make sure that you're also fighting the good fight with them.
Cool.
I think with leadership, just thinking about the question, if you tell someone, all right, do this, and they kind of begrudgingly do it, they're not going to do as good as a job as if they'd wanted to do it. So I think the biggest key with regards to leadership is people work best if they respect you as a person. So my biggest piece of advice is just be like a genuine, nice person that other people want to work with and work for and to do things together, because they're going to do a much better job, as you said, if they feel included as part of a team than if you're just simply telling them to do it. So yeah, going back to the inclusion point, you're a good leader if people want to do the things that you're trying to get them to do. So that's the definition of leadership for me, is getting other people to want to do the things that you need to do for your business or for whatever you're doing going forward. So yeah, inclusion.
Cool, thank you. Okay, so we have a lucky last question from an online viewer, and it states, as the SRC president, so it's the Student Representative Committee president at Toowoomba campus, do you have any advice on how to really use the strengths of my team as opposed to also helping them in their weaknesses? So just to explain, our Student Representative Committee could be up to 12 students from postgraduate studies, international, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander, and we also have our faculties. So they represent each different section, they come together and they really fight for the student's voice. So that's the Student Representative Committee. So she's the president of that. So yeah, I suppose she just wants some advice on how to really use the strengths. of their team. I suppose you'd probably need to know their strengths, I suppose, to really answer that, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um,
All right, I guess I'll kick it off. I think identifying the strengths and identifying the weaknesses is the first part there. And I guess it's like with any kind of leader, you gotta make sure that really caters for what you really want to achieve. And you got to almost empower the people to play upon their strengths, but then also, and what's been a fantastic thing is to be open about their weaknesses. I think that is really beneficial when people can actively stay and start to note what their weaknesses are. And it's not until I started developing myself personally when I realised what exactly my weaknesses are. So I think probably identifying them first, putting the right people to, in the right direction to achieve, that end goal of what you're trying to get out of the Student Representative Council would be my first initial response for that.
Great. Would you guys like to add anything?
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. So I've been serving on the Student Representative Committee for 2.5 years, and one of the skills that I've learned is writing minutes and taking agendas, and that's something I really enjoy. And what I like is that the other people in the SRC, they encourage me to do that, and they appreciate my contribution, and I appreciate the contribution of people such as Jeff, who is good to talking to students and networking with students. So I think it's good to acknowledge people's roles, different roles and skills, and encourage that.
Yeah, I've just generally found on that, with regards to what people's strengths are, I just generally find that what people enjoy doing is generally their strength. And on top of that, if someone enjoys doing it, they're more inclined to go the extra mile. I might say, all right, this would be a really good idea if you could do this video project for Breaking Free. And if they really enjoy working on videos, they're going to go to much greater effort to do the research, make it as good as possible, because they're actually enjoying it. So I found there's a bit of a correlation between what people enjoy and what their strengths are. So if you can put people and get them to do things that they enjoy, then they're more inclined to do a better job, and that's normally going to be their strengths.
Cool. Thank you so much. They were really amazing answers. Before we wrap up today, or tonight, sorry, depending on where you are in the world, does anyone have any other questions from the audience? No? Everyone's quiet as a mouse tonight. Okay, well thank you so much for attending online and on campus here at USQ Springfield. We hope you've taken away at least one thing from tonight and you can apply that to your own personal journey. So if we can just give all the speakers a round of applause. So thank you for coming. And we hope you have a good night.
Excellent.